Hi, I'm Dr. Stirling Hastings again, here in Camarillo, California, talking about the very miserable feeling of shame, the experience of shame, the ways that we go about avoiding having to feel it, and the ways that we can go about healing it. So today I would like to talk about how women shame men and how it's so integrated into our culture that we don't recognize it. Men don't recognize it, and women don't either. It starts from the idea that women are the better gender, and men are the bad gender. And so, of course, men are always doing those things in our minds that just don't make any sense, or how could he even think that way? And then we shame them for it. Now, I think I'm pretty much not doing that anymore, but I could still be because it's difficult to see. As a matter of fact, I got together a group of women and a group of men separate from each other, and I asked them to talk about how women shame men. And the women spent the 2 hours basically talking about how men were shameworthy and shaming them, putting them down, criticizing them, saying what's wrong with them. And men did exactly the opposite. They talked about what was wrong with them, that they deserved to be put down, that they deserved to be shamed. And every one of these men was very successful in their work. The ones that were married and were husbands were good husbands, by that definition. But I could not get them to see how women shame them. And I couldn't get the women to see how they shame men. Both genders feel that that's just the way it is. That's just the way men are. So I would like to invite you to start noticing this. And one of the best ways of doing this, of course, is the tone of voice. If you're a woman watching this, notice, first of all, how you feel when your man does something that you want to then criticize him for, or that you have criticized him for. Let's use a very simple example. The woman that was making a salad, and he came out and offered to do something to help. And she said, yeah, why don't you slice up those cucumbers? He starts slicing up the cucumbers, and she looks over and says, notice my tone. She says, why are you doing it like that? So you hear that tone? And then she continues with, those are way too thick. It's much better to slice them up thinner. Now, a non-shaming addressing of the way he's doing it would sound very different. It would sound something like, Tom, I really prefer them thinner. Could you do them thinner? Then they fit in your mouth better. You hear the difference? She still gets to ask to have it different, but she doesn't get to scold him, shame him, treat him like an idiot who just couldn't figure it out. So a big outcome of women shaming men is the initiating of circular arguments. You know what those are? That's where one person starts having trouble with the other person for some reason, and they tell them about it in a shaming way. Like, why did you do that? I told you I needed you home at 20 minutes after yesterday, and you came home at 10 till. Why did you do that? Well, of course, when Tom, we'll call him that, hears that tone, he knows that he's being shamed, and it sets off his feelings of shame. He feels shame for coming home late, and now she's calling him on that. But he doesn't want to just say, oh, yeah, you're right, put his head down. I mean, maybe he does, but, putting his head down and saying, yeah, you're right, I'm just an idiot. He could go into victim posture. And that is not likely to lead to a circular argument, although not healthy, of course. A circular argument starts when he says, what's your problem? It was only half an hour. We didn't have to leave yet. In other words, he shames back. And then, of course, She doesn't like the feeling of being shamed, especially by a man. And so she shames him back. You said you would do it. What's the deal when you say that you're going to do something and then you don't do it? And then he comes back with, yeah, but it's no big deal. And she says, but you said, and around and around. That's called a circular argument. Women think that men are responsible for those. There's many books on narcissism that pretty much talk about male narcissists, like Tom coming home a half hour late. What was he thinking? It's all about him. He has no consideration for anybody else, and on and on. When something very different might be going on for Tom. So check that out. Notice if when your friends are talking about their partners, their male partners, do they start out with something that he did that just, oh my God, how could he have considered being that way? Do they start that way? Because that is not going to lead anywhere. And you can have just as many boundaries. You can do just as good a job, better job, taking care of yourself if you don't shame him. Now, not shaming him doesn't mean that you can't be angry. Let's say that when he comes home that half hour late, that you were made late for something, that you're going to have to walk in 10 minutes late to something where walking in late feels really uncomfortable. It upsets what's going on, where you're headed. So it's something important. And he walks in late. Then you get to be upset with him. You get to say, Tom, I am really upset that we're going to have to walk in late now. I almost got in my car and went without you, and I think next time that I will. This just feels really bad. What was going on that you're late? Do you hear the difference? It's not putting him down. It's expressing what's going on for the woman, for me in this case. I don't know any Tom, but that's okay. So see if you can start noticing, because this can be a powerful change in your life. And I have written extensively about ordinary, everyday shaming. It's in my book, Shedding Shame and Claiming Freedom. Check in there too and notice that all the ways that people shame each other, that is so built into the culture that we don't know. And of course, shaming other people is not good for us. That might be the first reason to stop. If you shame someone, then you're with somebody who's reacting to being shamed, and they're very likely not going to be really conscious and present and telling you what's going on for them. They're going to very likely, from their own shame, be reacting to you. I'm always recommending talking with other people about these things. So you might share this video with a friend or more than one friend, even possibly a group of people, and start looking at it. Start speaking in a shaming, put-down tone, and then start practicing speaking in a caring but firm tone or inquisitive tone. Tom, what happened? You're half an hour late, right? Just curious. Tom, I would really like the vegetables to be cut smaller, because then I can get them in my mouth. When they're that big, then I have to cut them up, and it's easier the other way. Would that be okay? Right? You get to address everything, but in a different tone. And if you all get together and spend some time in somebody's home, or even out at a coffee shop, and maybe even a place having a drink, practice doing it differently, because we really need to change our neural pathways. We have all developed the neural pathways in our brains to shame other people, and so it's hard to see. So the first step is coming to be able to see when you're doing it. That is actually best to start with seeing other people doing it. I wrote one of my books, almost the whole book, sitting in various Starbucks, listening to people around me while I was writing. And it's quite remarkable how much shaming goes on when people are talking about problems at work, and I hear them talking about this person, here's what he did, and then he did that, and then he did that. It's like, oh God, what was he? Or I don't. Anyway, you get the idea. Sharing it with others and practicing doing it differently is an excellent first step in changing shaming men, creating relating that you can enjoy more and that the man in your life can enjoy more.
Well, now I'm curious to hear what you have to say. I would love a comment about a time that you felt yourself shaming men, or if you're a man, how a woman shamed you. I'd love to hear the stories. And feel free to share this video with your friends, family, or someone you know who is struggling with shame. Please like and subscribe for more videos. I look forward to speaking with all of you next week.